perhaps the hottest team in the WNBA, the Seattle Storm. Head coach Noelle Quinn, who I've covered quite some time. We're going to get into her background and how she got here as well, here to talk about it. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. Over 200,000 of you showed up in May alone, the way we show up for you. I know, right? 6 days a week. And so we are delighted that you're with us. And of course, it is not just me, it is the incredible team across the board over at The Next. At thenexthoops.com, we have over 100 reported pieces every single month. A reporter in each WNBA market, covering the past, present, and future of the game. Subscribe for $9 a month or $72 a year over at thenexthoops.com. And certainly a team that has given us plenty of material through the years. The Seattle Storm, a very interesting campaign already. Head coach Noelle Quinn, who I have had the privilege of covering dating back to her playing days. Coach, I have to throw a stat at you, okay? Right off the top. Cheryl Reeve is the longest tenured coach in the WNBA. You are second. You are second. It feels like yesterday. I remember Dan Hughes, who, we both have obviously known for a long time, makes the decision to step away. You're a veteran coach now, by any measure. Do you feel like a veteran coach?
I don't. Not to be named behind, Coach Reeves. She's amazing. I feel like I've just started,
It's fascinating, though, because clearly you haven't. Like, clearly you've been at this now for some time. And so even though, yes, you and I could both close our eyes and it's like, oh, I remember you on the court yesterday. I remember you winning championships, all of that.
Yeah.
You've clearly settled in here and you've got a team in Seattle as interesting, frankly, as any in the league. And so here in segment one, I'm going to talk with you about the extent to which you have turned this team into, maybe juggernaut's too big a term, but, clearly you look at the numbers and you guys are among the elite now. And really for the past 11 games, that's a segment I'm going to be using. Segment two, a little more about the ways in which you've made the Jewell Loyd, Skylar Diggins-Smith backcourt work and be maximized here, because in some key ways, they are performing as well together as any duo in the league. And then segment three, we're going to talk about, of course, Jordan Horston, who is as interesting and frankly at or near the top of any MIP list, obviously within the context of this league. But take me through first. You have the job in May of 2021. It's been a roller coaster, obviously. There's been a lot of turnover. There's been, players leaving, whether we're talking about Breanna Stewart, Sue Bird retiring, a turnover across the board on this roster. How surprised are you that it has turned this quickly to be able to put a team together the way the front office did this offseason to create another Seattle Storm contender?
Yeah. I don't know if surprise is the word. I'm just excited for me. Our offseason began when Jewell re-signed. That was huge for us. That was huge for her to stay in Seattle because it sparked a lot of what happened in free agency. And, Nneka and Sky, they've connected. They've known each other for a long time, and it's always been a dream of theirs to play together. And the stars aligned, and it wasn't just, them being great players, all three of them. It was they complemented each other. And so for us to go from, a season last year, an unintentional rebuild type season in which Jewell carried a heavy load, but, scoring champ and all these, amazing statistics that happened, all-star, Ezzy was an all-star, Jordan's growth. That really helped also with our free agency because, those two players understood the pieces that we had as well. And, you add, Tori to the mix, a vet who can, shoot the ball. We really shout out to our front office, to Lisa and Pokey, doing an amazing job with the groundwork and, the relationships that we've built as coaches and players that matters. And, the surprise part, I feel like we're still not there. We're getting better. We're scratching the surface. But to have a backcourt that like we do, an elite competitive point guard in Skylar, a great scorer in Jewell, and just a consummate pro and presidential NECA. Everything is, clicking, not quite where we need to be, but I think their competitive spirit, their desire to want to win, their desire to play with one another has really, jump-started this season and sparked, the highs so far in the season. Obviously, we know we have a lot of work to do because, with a shortened training camp, with, in a season where you don't have a lot of practice time, your learning and growth happens during the games. And, everyone's been locked into the details of the game, trying to be disciplined in our systems while we learn each other. And I think we've been super locked into that. And did you want me to touch on Jordan now, or?
Oh, well, we'll get to Jordan for sure, and in segment 3, although obviously like huge and the numbers reflect it. But, even to your point, and so interesting to me because there's a school of thought that you just can't build a contender to win in year one. And you go to the history of this league and, there's indications of that. You just look in recent history, the Liberty last year, very impressive, but get to the finals. Ultimately, the Aces with more continuity prevailed. The Aces took several years, to get to the finals, and then ultimately fell short against Seattle, as I'm sure you remember very well. Even when you go back to the Mystics, it took the Mystics. They added KT, they added Elena Deladon in 2017, but it wasn't until 2019 that they prevailed. Yes. They ultimately lost in 2018 to the Seattle Storm. Not sure if that's a team you remember at all, but that was just yesterday, right? I mean, I don't understand the passage of time and how this works, but like to that point, to that idea, obviously the clock is ticking in some fundamental ways. No one's really signed beyond 2025 because, as we well know, the players are expected to opt out of a CBA agreement, and so therefore everyone is sort of planning on this 1 or 2 year plan. Does this feel like a 2-year project to you? Kind of how do you conceive of it?
Yeah, time is of the essence. So for me, we're year by year, all the things that you've talked about that are coming up in the future. I think we have a special group and a special opportunity. And so, why not? Why not see what year one looks like, knowing that we're very realistic. It's not easy to do it. And even as you referenced our 2018 team, that took some time to cook up as well. It just doesn't happen overnight. It's about the chemistry building. It's about, staying healthy during the season. It's about all these other nuances that come into play when you're trying to build and play at a high level. And then, it's not an overnight process, though we have amazing athletes who are, are so talented and can do amazing things on a basketball court. There is a reality to a season. It's tough. There's highs and lows. Things get amplified when you lose 2 in a row. Things are, easy to get through when you're winning. And you're kind of battling, those during the year. But for me, and particularly this year, it's kind of like, for me, why not? Why not try to continue to compete at a high level? Why not, we talk about our North Star. Why can't that be, to get to the playoffs and hopefully, try to compete for a championship? And because we have really good pieces, and their chemistry is really accelerated, and that gives me hope that we can do some special things.
Bottom line, you go out there yesterday, and then we're recording Monday, and this will run on Tuesday. But the to go out and beat the Connecticut Sun, which not many people have done, number one, but number two, to do it as convincingly as you did 72-61. I think it opened a lot of people's eyes. And we're going to dig in segment 2 to more of the stats behind how and why that is. It's fascinating to me to see. But back after this break with Noelle Quinn of the Seattle Storm, I'm Howard Megdal, and you're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by FanDuel, and there are some fools, some absolute jokers on social media. Oh, there's no basketball all summer. Oh, we got to wait till the fall. Those of us here at Locked On Women's Basketball know that is not the case, with incredible WNBA action on a regular basis. And good news, so does FanDuel. FanDuel every day, all summer long, is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. So there's something for someone, everyone, every day, all summer long. How do you get it? Go over to FanDuel.com/locked on. You can start making the most out of your summer. Again, that is FanDuel.com/locked on to go get those everyday bonuses at FanDuel. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Can you imagine? Oh, what is the basketball? It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's incredible. Oh, I can't even. So we are back in segment 2 with Noelle Quinn of the Seattle Storm. And I do have to ask you, I'm curious what kind of memory you have of it, because Sunday afternoon, Caitlin Clark had 13 assists in the game against Chicago Sky. And I thought, all right, that's good. That's impressive. But back in my mind, it's like, I feel like I saw a rookie get 14 in a game. And that rookie, of course, Noelle Quinn, back in 2007. Coach, do you remember that game? Do you have like fond memories? I know it was the season finale. I went back and refreshed myself with the box score. Take me through what you remember of that.
It was the season finale. Teresa Edwards was also my coach that year, the assistant coach that year, and I believe I tied her record. And I didn't. I was just playing. You know those games where they don't really count because you're not going to make the playoffs, but you still have to play hard. And I was just doing my thing, and I don't know. Maybe some home cooking with those. Maybe a little bit of home cooking with those assists, but I just remember, distributing. When I got to the league, Coach Zierden wanted me to play point guard, and that was different coming from UCLA. But I was a big guard. I had a passing ability, and I do remember that game. I was distributing a lot, and I love that I'm still in the record books for the Lynx.
And it's a very cool thing to see. We are not going back assist by assist and checking the tape. That is box score. It is set in stone. You have that number. That is done. And the statute of limitations is certainly long since passed on reversing calls. But it does it does speak to something that, and I've spoken about this on the program before. I come up with a high level of confidence where you say, all right, Jewell, to your point, and just to kind of set the standard here, Jewell was coming in as one of several scorers on that Seattle team that won in 2018, that won in 2020, becomes by necessity a featured scorer last year. Now, asking her to return to this role where she is among stars is significant. Having Skylar Diggins-Smith come in off of 20 months away to come in and become a featured, essentially one of the, if not the key ball handler on that team, along with a lead scorer, along with someone who's running the show. All these are really complicated. And so I just want to read a quote you gave about a month ago. It resonated with me at the time. And to me, it feels like sort of a kickoff to what has come since then. So it said, there needs to be, this is a month ago, there needs to be respect about the fact that she had 2 children, we're talking about Skylar Diggins-Smith, and hasn't played in 20 months. She's not where she will be in game 4 of the season. She's not going to come overnight and be who she was 20 months ago, and we have to respect and honor that. I do, as a coach, as an organization, we do. So my grace as a coach is to know she's working her butt off every day. You guys don't see it every single day. 2 children, not 1, 2. Not many can do that. So the respect has to come, and the work. The respect has to come This is a decorated athlete who's done amazing things for this league, for women's basketball, for the world. Give her some grace. And so I just want to start off at the top. As a coach, as a communicator, how much does it mean internally for your team when you have your players' backs like that?
I hope it means a lot. You know, for me, being a former player, that's something that I really respected is when coaches got texts for you or went to the media and went to bat for you and protected you. And I know how far that goes in the locker room. Players, look at things now. Social media is big, and for me, it wasn't to make a point to social media or make this viral. It was me being exactly who I am as a coach, as a leader, very intentional about my job. This is hard work and heart work. And a lot of people sometimes don't understand that about it. And I have so much grace for these athletes because I've been in their shoes. I haven't had 2 children like Skylar, but I know the difficulties of being a professional athlete and having to juggle so many different hats. And, I try to pour that into my athletes, into my team, for them to understand, yeah, I'm a coach, and yeah, I have a responsibility to make us better on the basketball court. But I'm also a servant leader, and I also move a little bit differently than an average coach. And I also want them to understand that it's a holistic approach for me. It's not what you can do on the basketball court. It's not transactional for me. It's it's transformative for me. It's not performative for me. And so those times that I have to address certain things in the media to where I just clear it up a little bit, or I don't want the narrative to go a certain way, I'm always going to take the opportunity to have my players back.
Something, just a point of personal privilege, having covered you for a long time, I always learn from you. You're always straight up about whatever it is that we're talking about, and something I appreciate, something I have spoken to your players about, and something they appreciate too. But ultimately, the numbers are the numbers, right? And so there's only so much that you can do. What is fascinating to me is what we've seen since that quote. So there have been 11 games now played. You had that conversation with the media. A couple days later, Skylar shot 1 for 10. It was a real frustration, 0 for 2 from 3. I watched her warming up when she was here in New York earlier this year, and you'd see the form was still coming back. Everyone who was at practice for us over at the Next, we have the great Bella Munson covering you guys, and talked about how she's putting all that time in, and then suddenly it's like a light switch went on. And so just as a couple of pieces of information for our listeners at home to inform this, over the last 11 games, Skylar Diggins-Smith shooting 39% from 3 on almost 4 attempts per game. So not only is she hitting them, but she has become a more willing shooter of them, north of 82% from the free throw line, 16.1 points per game, more than 6 assists, fewer than 3 turnovers, becoming, in a lot of ways, the playmaker that she has been in this league for over a decade. When you have that conversation externally, are you seeing that she's close? I mean, was your expectation that this would almost immediately follow, or was that just like a lovely surprise that went on top of
it? I know how competitive she is, and we're still getting to learn each. I remember when Skylar, I think it was 2019, was pregnant and honest, and so I remember I'm on the other side of that, but now being on the side of it, I understand it because I see the work that she puts in every day. We kind of, our player development coach, Marcus Tibbs, kind of helped her with her footwork a little bit on her shooting, and she made that adjustment immediately. Translation into the game was immediate. She's very detail oriented. She's a basketball savant. She works extremely hard. And again, I'll continue to say she's very competitive. And so, we knew what percentage she was at. She communicated what percentage she was at during that particular stretch. But now, her genetics, she is blessed. The Lord has given her some amazing genetics to come back, and you see her physical, you see her her explosiveness to the rim. You see her pace. You see her physicality. All of that just needed a little bit of time, after having, spent so much time being with her daughter and her son, but also just having her daughter. It's the work that I see every single day in which I knew that this was going to come. And, I have a privilege to see it every day. And the numbers that she's putting up, she's done it her entire career, but it is because she's been intentional about her work, and it's showing up on the floor.
It's fascinating to see. Segment 3, we're going to bleed into a little bit more about the way that she works with Jewell as well. Just back right after this, segment 3 with Noelle Quinn. I am Howard Megdal. You're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Back here in segment 3, and Coach Quinn, you talked about how blessed she is. Again, Jewell setting the tone, as you said up top, making that decision to re-sign. Skylar talked about at the intro press conference about how excited she was to play with Jewell. Having someone in Jewell Loyd who clearly is putting winning first, has done it throughout her entire career and does that again. How rare is that historically among, you didn't even say volume shooters of, always thinking in terms of the team context? Is that the thing that stuck out to me with Jewell dating back to, frankly, her time at Notre Dame?
Yeah. I mean, when both Sky and NECA signed, they adamantly said this is Jewell's team. And so, there was that kind of pressure off of who's going to get the shot, and all of these things that can come into play. They came in with the mindset and understanding of, we're coming here to play with you. We want to play with each other. And I think that really set the tone and set the table for us to realize what we have, but how we could navigate this. And, Jewell is a professional scorer, and, she's historically a tough shot taker and maker. And now you have complementary pieces, Sky, who can get Jewell, the ball where she needs it, but also herself can create, for herself and others. And then NECA just being very efficient in how she plays the game of basketball. And so those complementary pieces help, Jewell's shots become cleaner. Not a lot of double team and triple teams this year, because if you do, we can, make you pay on the backside with the athletes that we have. But it's just it's a comfort of knowing we have versatility in multiple positions now. Jewell's also kind of moonlighting as our backup point guard, tandem point guard with Sammy as well. So finding ways to distribute that scoring for her, different times of the game, different looks, have her with the ball and not only off the ball. So, again, it's a big shout out to Jewell for really seeing the vision of where we can take this thing and, continue to trust the process and this journey of where we can get to with this particular team.
And you mentioned this, but it's so significant that it's easy to get lost in the big three. And obviously what NECA Gourmet has done as well, cannot go unnoticed and is a critical part of the growth that you had. But there's a couple of things that really did jump out at me when I dug deeper into the minutes and the numbers. And one of them is that if you go by two-person lineups, the net rating for Jewell, along with Ezi Magdregor, is actually 10.7 so far this year, which is higher than almost anyone among those who have played 400 minutes together. The only dual lineups that are ahead of that are a handful in New York, a handful of Connecticut, and Kayla McBride and Nafisa Collier. So again, the elite of this league so far, and that's a full season sample. You cut it to just the 11 games, and they rank even higher together. I know you guys are fortunate again that Ezi recently signed a contract extension, again, saw the vision. But it goes back to, for me, that we can get so caught up in who's getting how many shots, but you guys defensively are
Yeah.
really making your mark. You go over these past 11 games, and it's really significant. You guys are among net rating as impressive as any team. Again, Liberty plus 15.6, Lynch plus 13.5, Connecticut plus 10, and you guys right there at plus 9.9. No one else is north of plus 2.7, which is to say that you make a separation and you say these are the top four that have been playing now for what is more than a quarter of a season. But you're third among those teams in defense, 93.3 defensive rating. How are you able to get your team communicating this well defensively this fast? I guess is sort of my easiest question.
Yeah, I honestly think it's in the DNA of the players that we have.
Yeah.
So you're kind of touched on Ezzy, Olympian, all-star, but her instincts defensively as the anchor in that, I think Nneka called her the Marshall, to sometimes fix a lot of our mistakes at the point of attack. So, coming over to block shots, coming over to alter shots, her agility to guard multiple positions, it helps us a lot. And, same with Nneka, her physicality, Skylar on the ball, Jewell knowing, KYP and tendencies because she's been in this league for so long.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I feel like we've been way better at is rebounding. And so now you have possessions of, you can be aggressive, you can be physical, you can, play a variety of different schemes, but now we're actually finishing possessions with rebounds. And that's a huge benefit to having a pretty decent defense.
To put it mildly.
The other thing is communication. Actually, two other things. Communication is key, right? To know the scheme sets, what we're doing. I talk about landing the plane a lot of times. Sometimes it may not be the correct scheme, but to do the most aggressive thing. And I think they've bought into that as well, having each other's back, being on a string and being connected and just getting stuff done. The other thing that I would say about our defense is to keep it simple a lot of times. Mm-hmm. So, you're playing amazing talent every night and you want to trap this person and blitz this person and go under this person, go over this person, go through what we're finding now in the last kind of couple of games is if we keep it very simple. You got the simple can turn into aggressive. Sorry.
Yeah, all good. And yeah, no, it all makes sense. And again, when you talk about the keeping it simple, I wonder whether Jordan Horston's talent for the defensive side of the ball helps sort of make those connections explicit. And I say that as like somebody who, the numbers supported, obviously, and she was north of 2% block and steal percentage last year. This year so far, she's at 4 and 3, which is just ridiculous, especially for someone, who's playing a lot of wing for you guys. But, how much is her growth on the defensive side of the ball kind of the connective tissue that, brings it all together for you guys?
Yeah, it's big because she can guard on ball, off ball, and the reps that she got last year defending at the 4 a little bit more. That's how she started the year. Yeah. Those reps are coming, the fruits of those labors, so to speak, are coming to fruition because she knows the physicality. I think last year she spent all year like kind of in awe, and this year she's like, okay, like she said last night, I believe she said, I belong here. And that there's a confidence level that Jordan needs to play with in order to be her best self. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing confidence in herself, confidence in her work. She's very smart and she takes time with her scout to study, to ask questions so that she can live in her number one role, which is to be an elite defender. And now she's added, like just the nuances of staying in place with the DeWanna Bonner or, knowing KYP in a different level because you have to switch onto different matchups. So knowing that I might have to go from going over to under to, all the things that have to come into play with defensive instincts. And then the deflections, the length, the athleticism, the challenging at the rim, the verticality, that's natural. And so a lot of times, our team is flying around, covering for each other and utilizing their talent. And, and that's just causing a lot of disruption because, they're so connected. So, Jordan brings another element for us that helps us in every position. And she's going to continue to elevate because where her mind is, she's so focused and she wants to be great for her team.
And, you mentioned it, but you paralleled her minutes with DeWanna Bonner in Sunday's game. DB, I believe, had 0 points at the half, which I've been covering DB a long time. I don't often remember that happening. But what is most fascinating to me, and we'll just end here if we could, which is that as great as she has been, Jordan Horston, on the defensive end, and like you said, learning and clearly taking a step forward, a massive leap forward offensively. We've seen her true shooting percentage go from 41 to north of 54%. Most significantly for me, I see where she's taking her shots. Took about 28% of them 10 feet out from 2 last year. That is down to about 10% from 10 feet out from 2. The threes went from 14 to 22%. And of course, what she's able to do even from inside of 10, from 3 to 10 feet, she was 29.1% from the field last year. She's 54.8 this year, going from, a minus to a plus from a range that's absolutely critical for this offense to be running. Did she come into camp with you just seeing she's got a different offensive mindset? Is that you guys talking to her about where she gets her shots? How did that come about?
Yeah, in the offseason, she had shoulder surgery. And so, we looked at these same exact numbers that you're talking about at the end of the season and said she had to improve mightily around the rim. Pokey talks about how she's athletically gifted. She can get to the penthouse, but sometimes when her finishes, she's finishing on ground level, and she doesn't realize she can jump that high. So the offseason, the work was very intentional. When her right shoulder was going through her rehab process, she was doing all left hand workouts, and then when she was able to get back to her right hand, now her left hand improved mightily. So, we started with finishes, our PD work and our coaches who worked with her in the off season started there. And then as we gradually moved back, worked on her, Monte, our other PD coach, worked on her actual changing her shooting form a little bit. So now you talked about her 3-ball improving. But where I wanted her, as a staff, as a head coach, where I wanted to start was her efficiency around the rim, because she missed a lot of layups. And as you see now this year, those layups are now finishes. I'm not telling her to turn down those 10, like you talked about, the 10 foot and out, but she has an ability to get her feet in the paint because she's finishing so well. So we don't want to pass up those opportunities, but also the catch and shoot threes that she's going to get, because people aren't going to play her as a shooter. If she can hit 1 or 2 of those a game, we're better for that too. But again, this is all icing on the cake things because it's offense. We're going to always start with defense with Jordan, but if she can be efficient on the floor, if she can be a threat on the floor, she's going to play a lot of minutes because she does so many great things on the within her, the time that she is on the floor.
No, it's true. And to your point, went from 63% from at the rim to 75% so far this year. Become automatic there. Defense keeps her on the floor. Offense can make her a star. I could talk all day to Noelle Quinn, but she's got better things to do. So, Coach, thank you for taking the time. To our listeners, thank you for making us your first listen every day. We'll be back with you tomorrow with Aerial Powers of the Atlanta Dream. Until then, I am Howard Megdal, wishing all of you a wonderful Tuesday.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.